look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
What's up, guys? I am Dante Gomez, filling in for Rachel Vigil on this Wednesday edition of Coffee Break. I am joined by Denver Sports' own Jake Shapiro. How you doing, Jake? Do I have to worry about taking your shoelaces away? It feels like the vibes around the station have been a little down after a Buffs and Broncos loss.
Vibes are high for me. Basketball season's about to start. I love hoops, baseball playoffs, Dante. This is one of my favorite times of the year. The sports equinox, as we like to call it, is coming up a week from Saturday when all four major sports are playing on the exact same day, as well as MLS we've got going on, and the WNBA Finals Game 3 is tonight. So I'm pumped. I'm not a Broncos fan personally, so I'm not actually, I don't have an NFL team. I just watch football, so this is fine. And, Colorado Buffaloes, man, I'm used to them losing. That's the existence of following the Colorado Buffaloes. So, I'm not shocked by any of this, so I'm all good.
Okay, hey, that's great to hear. I'm in the same boat. I came in on Monday, and I was talking to Dover and Cecil, and I was like, oh, what a great weekend of sports. And they were like, Dante, we just did 2 hours of sad radio about the Buffs and the Broncos. And I was like, yeah, I guess just, different strokes for different folks, I guess. But I'm all with you, man. We got sports every day, every night between the playoffs or MLB playoffs. We got football, college football. NBA is kicking off soon. NHL started a week ago. So I'm having a great time.
I think there's more to worry about right now with the Avs than there is the Broncos.
Yeah, hey, I would agree with that. They no Avs on the the schedule for today as far as our show, but we can definitely get into that as well. Where I did want to start, though, is the Buffs. We'll do a little recap. They lost a great game down at Folsom up in Boulder last weekend. Come all the way back. They were down 21-7 at one point. Come back. They had the lead 28-24 at one point with 3 minutes left, actually. So what a game. Shedeur Sanders kind of shines. He had that one bad pick, but other than that, I think impressed a lot of people. What were your major takeaways from Shedeur Sanders? And actually, I'll preface it first with we saw Travis Hunter go down. We saw Jimmy Horn go down. So he was kind of getting it done with limited options.
Yeah, not only that, but the game's leading receiver, Omarion Miller, who has twice now been Colorado's leading receiver in games where Travis Hunter has been out, broke his ankle in the game. And he went down. And then Colorado lost another receiver that most people won't know as well. So he lost 4 receivers in this game. And I think he threw the ball to 11 different targets in the contest. It was ridiculous. If Colorado wins that game, Shedeur Sanders is a legit Heisman candidate. That's for real. They would have topped a team that's potentially going to win the Big 12 and done so with basically on the arm of Shedeur. But I think you mentioned it. The thing that held the Buffs back in that game is Shedeur threw the one ball he could not throw. And, I'm not blaming Shedeur because the Buffs do not get close in that game without Shedeur. But the one mistake proved to be very costly because I think that one drive in those 3 extra minutes would have been very beneficial in that change of possession. I know Kansas State went 3 and out on the next possession, but it would have been one less possession for the defense to hold up. And guess what? That one extra possession that Kansas State got, they scored in 58 seconds. And that's the reason Colorado loses ultimately. I think it says a lot about the Buffs that they even got close in this game because from my eyes, they got dominated for 3.5 quarters. And the only time they didn't was when they went on that 10-0 run very briefly in the 4th. So Kansas State ran the ball down their throats. They were fantastic, I thought, on the ground. Giddens is one of the best, I think maybe the best player they've played against this year. The Kansas State big boys in front and on both sides of the ball really dominated. That's what I was expecting. And then I was expecting if Colorado could make this a track meet on the outside, they would have a chance in this game. Colorado didn't have an opportunity to make it a track meet on the outside. And then all of a sudden their top 4 wide receivers go down and Shedeur says, whatever, I'll do it myself. And he made it a track meet on the outside, and it almost became a game. But ultimately, Shedeur's one mistake. The in-game management by the coaches and their timeout usages and some of the things that they decided to do with the decision-making, be it a 4th and 10 call that is a shot play for some reason that may or may not have been pass interference. I could hear both sides on it, quite honestly. But as Dion said, they shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. And I agree with that part of it. And, there was also an earlier 4th down call that was pretty bad because the Buffs don't trust their kicker. And it just kind of ends up in a loss, right? And that's what we see every weekend in football. It's 3 or 4 decisions go left or right, and that's how you end up in a loss. And again, I hate to be like positive guy, but Colorado should be happy to be in these positions because this is one of the top 15 teams in the country. And you're talking about 3 things go left or right, and the Buffs win this game. A couple of years ago, we're talking about 3 things go left or right, and they still lose by 3 scores. So I thought this was really impressive, actually, from Colorado still. I had Kansas State winning by 3. Ultimately, that's what happened. And I think they go into Arizona next week, who have the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the country outside of the Buffaloes and Travis and Shedeur. And it's going to be a really, really fun game. And you look around the rest of the Big 12, and Colorado does not control their own destiny anymore. Okay. But the Big 12 completely opened up this weekend with Cam Rising getting hurt for Utah, Arizona losing again. Like, the only team that truly seems that much better than Colorado is Kansas State.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you on a lot of what you just said there. I think for them to lose in the fashion they did, in terms of Kansas State dominated the line of scrimmage, they were able to run the ball when they wanted to, especially early in that game. For that style of play to go out on the field and Colorado still keep it close, impressed me a lot in their trenches. It kind of reminded me of the UCF game, but just against a greater opponent. But yeah, they brought their end, just wasn't quite enough in terms of a good Kansas State team. Like, Kansas State is just a good football team. They're fundamentally sound. They got big boys up front on both sides of the ball, and they took advantage of that. And where CU and last year were maybe a little soft up front, so I think they were able to prove that they could hang with some of those big boys.
The thing that was disappointing when you talk about hanging with the big boys is Colorado didn't run the ball at all in this game. Like, they completely abandoned the run game in the second half at one point. And, Pat Shurmur's out here on the vlogs. You could see him in the team meetings going, we need to run the dang ball. Well, whose fault is that, Pat? You're the one calling the plays. Like, so some of the stuff, like, and Dante, I said this at the time, Colorado might go bowling in 2024. The thing that might separate them from being a college football playoff team and being just a regular bowl team was the decision to hire Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator. And Saturday's game might have been that game because the play calling for a stretch was brutal. And Colorado really could have used Kansas State's backup running back, Dylan Edwards, in that game. I know people keep saying, oh, their running backs are fine now. They still almost have no run game.
Yeah, no, I saw the same clip that you're talking about with, Pat Shurmur. Hey, we need to run the ball. I took it more as a execution problem versus play calling, but, I understand where if you do want to knock Pat Shurmur for the play calling on running the ball as well. Overall, though, were you impressed with Shedeur? Do you think this actually, even though it was a loss, do you think it proved to people around the country that he can get it done and get it done with, I don't want to say lesser than wide receivers or just, not his regular core? Do you think that, was seen around the country, maybe by some NFL scouts? Do you think that actually helped Shedeur?
I think it's a resounding yes, because if you look today, ESPN just released a mock draft for the NFL, which I'll be writing about on denversports.com later today. Shedeur Sanders is the number 1 overall pick on ESPN's mock draft. And the lesser than thing is huge, Dante, because I keep making the argument that Jimmy Horn Jr., Xavier Weaver last year, Travis Hunter, and then Will Shepard, some of these guys that Colorado has on the outside, that's a better receivers room than he's going to walk into if he was the quarterback of the Broncos like Bo Nix is his rookie year. Or, for instance, the Browns, where he's mocked to be, like, who's their top receiver? Jerry Jeudy? We know how that goes. Travis Hunter's better than him. They just traded Amari Cooper. Like, I don't even know who their third string receiver is at this point, but let's say it's a guy like Lil Jordan Humphreys or a Josh Reynolds type. Colorado's got better guys on the outside than the Broncos do. Like, they do. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. So if you want to put Shedeur in the situation where he's quarterbacking, obviously a bad team because he was one of the top picks, it's very likely that the receiver talent looks a little bit more like it did for him Saturday at the end of the game than it did Saturday at the start of the game. So that to me was pretty impressive. Now, the one thing that I hope for Shedeur is that his offensive line, when he gets to the NFL, is significantly better than what it is right now, because that offensive line is still brutal and it's gotten better. No doubt about it. It really has. But Shedeur still runs a little scared. His drop backs where he's running 15 yards back, he's trying to get to an edge to maybe break through. It looks like me playing college football, and then it's like, whatever, I'll run the reverse flea flicker to get 50 yards in the next play. That's not how it works in college football. And it particularly is not going to work in the NFL. We saw that couple first weeks with Caleb Williams trying to get to the corner and then just get sacked out on the edge because these edge guys in the NFL are so much faster. So Shedeur definitely has some things to work on. But for my money, and I need to see a little bit more Quinn Ewers just because he got hurt this year, but it's Quinn and Shedeur as the two best quarterbacks in college football this year for their NFL hopes. And I was really, really impressed with Shedeur on Saturday. Maybe more impressed than I've been at any point so far with him in a Buffs uniform, besides maybe the TCU game, because it was like, what is this? Oh my God, he's thrown for all these touchdowns, right? Like, because we didn't even know at that point. So yeah, Shedeur on Saturday, that may have been his best game as a Buff. And it says a lot because it came at a time that the team absolutely needed it. And, you know, I think you always have questions about the resolve and the mental makeup of a quarterback when you're drafting him. And I think he answered a lot of them on Saturday.
No, I completely agree. I think he showed mental toughness. I think he showed physical toughness because he was getting beat up. He's been getting beat up all season for the most part. So I'm with you. I like him a little more than Quinn Ewers too. I think there's something Quinn Ewers throws kind of a soft ball that I don't know if that's going to translate to the NFL as well. Well, let's move on here. Travis Hunter. Actually, real quick before we move on, the outlook. They did lose a tight one there. Still 4-2, 2-1 in the conference. As you said, don't control their own destiny, but it almost feels like the Big 12 will eat itself at some point, cannibalize itself as the old Pac-12 used to. Do you still see Big 12 championship on the board? Do you still see a 8-9 win season? What's your new outlook based on Saturday's result?
Yeah, I think 8 wins is pretty realistic. They've got 2 more home games. They're at 5 right now, and they play Kansas in Kansas City, which will be, a fun game, but let's not mince words. Like, it's not going to be the craziest environment ever. It's not on campus. It's in Arrowhead. And I don't think the University of Kansas is traveling, 50 miles down the road and bringing out a huge crowd like, the Kansas City Chiefs would on a Sunday. So, and Kansas has proven to be a lot worse than we thought they were going to be. So that game should be pretty winnable. And, Oklahoma State at home should be pretty winnable. And then they've got Cincinnati at home, which is that's just a guaranteed win. If they don't win that game, then everything changes. I'm not saying I guarantee the win, but like that's one that you absolutely need to win.
Okay.
So I think they should be able to get to 8. I think this Arizona game on Saturday is really interesting because if they win it, then all of a sudden I'm back up to 9, and that puts them back in the Big 12 title race chances. They need BYU and
Iowa State's also at the top.
Sorry?
Iowa State.
Iowa State. They need Iowa State and BYU, thank you, to lose. They don't play each other, which is kind of a weird wrinkle in this giant conference expansion. So you need both of them to lose individually. Texas Tech is also undefeated in conference play, but you go to Lubbock in November. So let's just say, Dante, you win this Saturday, you win at home in your next game against Cincinnati, and you win in Lubbock, which are your next 3 games, then all of a sudden, college football playoff is back on the board. Big 12 title game is back on the board. Because if you win the Big 12, you're automatically there. And honestly, dude, if you're playing for the Big 12 title, you've got a chance to win it. Like, even if it's like Colorado versus Kansas State and the odds makers are blah, 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 we saw Colorado versus Kansas State. We saw how close that was. So I'm not even sure who would be the next best team in the conference at this point, because I thought the world of Utah coming into this year, and they have stunk up the joint. So, Arizona State looks fantastic. I was really excited to see them win on Friday because that was just a really cool college football story. But I'm not sure that they're legitimately at the level where you could talk about college football playoff yet. So I still think this thing is wide open. I'm actually probably higher on the Buffs in terms of where their outlook is for their future this season after losing to Kansas State than I was before, because they played them so tight, even though they got dominated for most of that game. So I'm pretty high on the Buffs, and I think the bowl is almost guaranteed at this point. Lord knows I've said that in the past when they've been at 5 wins with 5 games left to play. But here we go again. Colorado Buffaloes versus bowl eligibility, my favorite rivalry in sports.
No, I'm with you on that. I would almost guarantee a bowl appearance at this point too. It would have to be, some injury to Shedeur or Travis for the season. Honestly, maybe not even Travis. We saw Travis go out and they still looked pretty good. We got they are 3.5-point dogs down in Tucson. That'll be really exciting. We could see a top 10 NFL draft matchup between McMillan for U of A, the receiver, and Travis Hunter, the defensive back on him. So that would be an awesome matchup that you don't really get to see too much of one-on-one top 10 draft, probability there for both those guys. So that'll be very exciting. Let's move on to Travis Hunter, though. Took a little bit of a dive in the Heisman odds. Ashton Jeanty is out to a commanding lead at this point as far as the odds makers have it, with Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback, who was able to win in Eugene against Ohio State last week in that awesome game. And then Travis Hunter slotted third with Cam Ward and Jalen Milroe, fourth and fifth there in those top 5, or rounding out the top 5 of the Heisman odds. Do you still see him making an appearance in New York? Do you think he still has a chance to win?
What's the number? What's plus on Travis right now?
Travis Hunter's plus 800.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I wrote the story for denversports.com on Monday. Trav went from plus 300 going into the week to plus 1,200 on Monday. And the reason was obviously had a really poor game in terms of production because he missed 3/4 of it. Can't really blame him for that, but it does affect your season stat line. And he goes down to plus 1,200, and that's before Deion comes out and says he's going to play. Then he jumps back up to plus 800. He was at plus 10 or 1,000 yesterday. So essentially, a lot of Travis's dip in the odds that I wrote about Monday came because people were scared he was going to miss parts of the future slate. Jeanty is clearly the favorite. Jeanty is incredible. He's got my vote now. He's got everyone's vote right now, and he deserves it. But the fact that Travis is hanging around, especially after a game where you only had 25 yards, essentially, and he didn't contribute on defense all that much, tells you a lot about how much people really want to vote for Travis, as well as how much money is behind Travis across college football, because the books don't want to take that big of a hit. So I think Travis is very much still in this thing. I don't think the odds are that great on Cam Ward right now, which is just a fool's errand because he leads the country in passing touchdowns and passing yards. And Miami doesn't have a ranked opponent on their schedule right now. So Miami's probably going to go undefeated, although they've almost lost to 2 unranked teams the last 2 times they've played. So Cam Ward, to me, is a really, really nice guy to consider for that trophy. I don't like Dylan Gabriel all that much. I think there's a lot of hype because they just beat Ohio State, and understandable. But to me, the 3 favorites are Jeanty, Hunter, and Ward. And Ward's really the only guy at quarterback that can win it. Maybe Quinn Ewers can sneak back into this thing because Texas has a loaded schedule, and we'll see what he does in some of these giant college football games. But if Jeanty and Boise State stay undefeated through Mountain West, and Jeanty keeps putting up 200 yards a week, I don't know how you're going to catch him. And there was this really good tweet, and I forget who sent it. It's just like, if you invite Jeanty to New York, he should just go run up and take the trophy because no one's going to be able to stop him from doing it. And it's facts.
Hey, no one's proved to be able to stop him thus far through the season. So I've been rooting for Boise State. Got a little sprinkle future on them to make the playoffs here. So I've been pretty bought into their season from the start, and it's been awesome to watch him go. Zach Bye made a great point yesterday that Travis Hunter could, hopefully this doesn't end up happening. He could have probably missed 4 games and still lead the country in snaps, though.
Well, that's not even that hot of a take from Zach, and I love Zach. I'm not meaning to call him out because Travis led the country in snaps last year and missed 3.5 games. So we've already seen him do it.
Yeah, no, I would love to see it happen. So I think he's still got a good chance. Obviously, he has to stay healthy the rest of the year. Can't miss too many more games in terms of getting invited to New York. And I think CU just has to, they get to 8-9 wins. I think he has a good chance of getting out there too, which team success probably shouldn't factor into it, but it always does with these kind of awards.
Well, even if it's not direct, Dante, it's, well, the team is playing on primetime every week versus what happened last year at the end of the season where they're all of a sudden on Pac-12 network at 10 o'clock at night against Washington State. And whether or not you, the voter, are factoring in that, the direct team success, you might be going, I'm not staying up to watch that game. So that does have an impact.
Yeah, no, you got to have eyeballs on him to have the voters want to vote for him. Also, there was a couple clips here of Travis Hunter making the case for him to be the number one pick on a podcast. He also mentioned why he should win the Heisman. Kind of a different angle than we've seen from Travis Hunter take. He mentioned that, whatever, not misquoting, but it's similar to, he said something like, I've been humble for too long. Do you like him speaking up for himself, or did you like the more humble side of him where he just kind of went out there on Saturdays and did his thing?
I like it when athletes say things because my job is to put them into quotes and write stories. So the more athletes say things, Dante, the better it is for me. And the better it is for us as sports talk people because it's interesting to talk about. So I like that Travis is talking, and I don't think it in any way impacts anything that's going on the field. I think it does speak maybe to his mentality a little bit, that he's gained some confidence in power football. You have to remember, he didn't play power conference football until last year, so he's probably still trying to get his feet wet. And even though he was one of the better players in the country, he was trying to get his feet wet. And I don't think any of this has gone to his head because he's still playing very well. But, he's on Kai Cenat's streams every day. He's truly becoming one of the biggest celebrities in pro sports. And just to be blunt, it's not like he has the most bombastic personality ever. So now he's starting to develop that, and that's okay. He's still 20, 21 years old. So he's coming out of his shell a little bit as a person. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought, hey, you see NFL guys, talk the talk every weekend. So I think he's proved enough at this point, and I think he's getting so much praise from the NFL guys too. So I'm happy for him. Go out there, do your thing, be confident, and keep playing well. Let's shift over to the Nuggets. 0-4 through the preseason so far. Any level of panic from you for the 0-4 start, or even outside of the record, how it's looked on the court?
Dante, I'm almost embarrassed to say this about an 0-4 start in preseason. I'm at a 9.
Oh.
I'm really panicked about the Nuggets. This is bad. This is really, really, really bad. I think that the 2 off seasons of bad moves is really showing. They lost the Thunder last night, and granted, they were without their 2 starting point guards, essentially, in Jamal and Ross. They were without Nikola Jokic. But the whole thing the Thunder are going to do when the Nuggets play them is pressure the ball and make life really, really hard for their guards. So last night, Malone said, let's see what we've got behind Jamal and Russ to know what we can go to against the Thunder. And the Nuggets had 18 turnovers. And it was really, really rough. And on top of that, the Nuggets have fewer steals so far through 4 preseason games than the New Zealand Breakers of the Australian Basketball League, who are playing preseason basketball with the rest of the NBA. They have more steals in 3 games than the Nuggets do have in 4 preseason games. I have some major concerns about the Nuggets' ability to turn teams over. I have some concerns about the Nuggets' ability to break the press, especially in the physicality of the rule changes that happened midway through the season last year. And then my main concern with the Nuggets, they simply do not shoot enough threes in today's day in the NBA. And I don't think, no matter how good Michael Porter Jr. looks, and he looks really good, Dante, he looks like he might be the next candidate to be an all-star beside Nikola Jokic. If I had to put my money on it right now, I'd say Porter's actually going to be an all-star this season before Jamal Murray. It's still not enough threes. They need to find some more three-point shooting. They need Julian Strother to level up. They need Zeke Naji to shoot threes. They are looking for some answers in some desperate places right now. And they need not 1, not 2, but 3 young players in Christian Braun, Peyton Watson, and Julian Strother to become legitimate NBA rotation players after being late round draft picks just a couple of years ago. So I am in a place of, if you think the Nuggets are going to go far this year, you should be pretty worried right now. And I still do think it ultimately comes down to Jamal Murray's health. And that's your next question. And I'll let you ask it.
Well, yes, we did see Jamal Murray go down. Didn't come back in the second half of the Suns preseason game on Sunday. Before we get to that, I do want to point out, I agree with you. I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to have a career year this year. I think he's going to have the best year he's had so far and really take a step forward, scoring the ball. I don't know if he's going to create as much as people are hoping for, but I think he's going to shoot the ball really well. I think he's going to rebound really well, and I think he's going to play great defense, which is, all good, three good things that you can bring to a basketball team.
Yeah.
But yes.
Like the ESPN top 100 that ranked KCP ahead of Michael Porter Jr. Like, what the heck are you guys doing? even like I could split hairs on Aaron Gordon being ranked higher than MPJ. That ESPN ranking is truly one of the dumbest top hundreds I've ever seen in the history of basketball. How you have Cade Cunningham at 67. You have Podziemski from Golden State ahead of MPJ. They just clearly don't know what they're doing. And already last year, MPJ was a complete player. He was playing defense. He rebounds the heck out of the ball. And he left maybe a bad taste in people's mouths because of that Minnesota series, but he was amazing in the Lakers series. So MPJ is one of the top 75 players currently in the NBA. There's no two ways about it. And the way he looks right now, he's going to look more like one of the top 50, one of the top 40 guys than closer to 87 or whatever he was ranked. So I'm with you, Dante. Not only is he already a complete player, but he's finding ways to improve his game even more so by finishing and putting the ball on the floor. And that would be huge for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You did touch on the top 100 list there, so we'll skip that. But we had Murray making an appearance. He dropped about 15 slots. Gordon went up 2 spots. MPJ dropped around 20 spots, and then KCP came in at 62. Nikola Jokic yet to be ranked, but I'm assuming he will be got to be top 3, probably number 1. And it'd probably be a little odd if he was not number 1. The Jamal Murray injury, we'll finish with that and get out of here. But we saw you were talking about other teams pressing them between Oklahoma City. We saw that a lot with Minnesota last year in the playoffs, to the point where we saw Aaron Gordon taking the ball up. So Murray didn't have to worry about breaking that press and that physical defense that Minnesota brought. Are you expecting Murray to be out a long time? Are you expecting him to look like himself? I mean, he got a little injured towards the end of last year, and it was just like, hey, we just need him back for the playoffs. But if he's injured coming into the year, that's a whole nother ball game where, the Nuggets need him. How long can Jokic, keep this team afloat if Murray is missing time, or even if he's playing, he's not 100%?
If Jamal Murray's out and Nikola Jokic is playing for an extended period, the Nuggets are still going to make the playoffs. We've seen this 2 years that happen. The Nuggets are still a playoff team because of Nikola Jokic. Their floor with Nikola Jokic, no matter who else is around them, is still a playoff appearance. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. This is all about making sure Jamal Murray is healthy and in rhythm come April. So whatever happens in the next couple months, I don't really care. It just needs to ramp up for Jamal. What I am concerned about, though, is this is a knee injury he's now been fighting since November of last year when he hurt it in the in-season tournament. He comes back, plays for the Nuggets, then kind of gets bruised up towards the end of last year, and then he is a disaster in the playoffs with his health. That bleeds over to the Olympics, and now it looks like it's starting this year as well. And this is a lot to be saying about a guy whose knee just felt a little funny, right? Like his knee felt a little funny in a preseason game. Of course, we're going to hold him out a little bit. Like no big deal, whatever. The reason it's a big deal is because of the history and what the Denver Nuggets trajectory is with a healthy Jamal Murray, what it is with a banged up Jamal Murray, and what it is without Jamal Murray in entirety. And those are 3 very different things as we've seen from the Nuggets' recent history. So I think the key to the season still is Jamal's health. Where is Jamal? How is he playing? I have some major concerns with the rule changes in the NBA and how that affects particularly Jamal Murray. But I will say, and you brought this up, Aaron Gordon being a point guard for this team at times is a very valuable thing that the Denver Nuggets need to utilize. He's a very good player, but you're also expecting Aaron Gordon to be the backup center most likely come playoff time. So you're expecting Aaron Gordon to be your secondary ball handler, your backup center, your starting power forward, and hopefully a guy who can shoot threes because Christian Braun's also on the team and you still have some questions about his ability to shoot threes. You're asking a lot of Aaron Gordon this year, and I just don't know that it might be too much. And I love Aaron, but you're asking a lot of just anybody to do all of those things.
Yeah, no, completely agree. You're asking a lot from Aaron Gordon. You're asking a lot from Jokic in terms of he's kind of raised all tides for the whole team the last 3-4 seasons. And, eventually that does catch up. I don't know how long you can do that forever. So, or if you can do that forever, as far as Jokic, being like head and shoulders the best player on the team and not really having a great number two. Murray does it at times, but if you're asking, Jokic to do that for 82 games plus the playoffs, over time that adds up. But we'll leave it at that. Jake, thank you for joining. Coffee Break will be back tomorrow. We'll have Will Peterson on as we preview the Broncos Saints Thursday night game. But thank you for watching, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow at noon.